A day and a half ago, you could have offered $1 million for anyone to tell you who Sam Nunberg was, and your money would have been safe. But as is so often the way these days, the former Trump aide became the king of the news cycle in the blink of an eye, hopping from one interview to another with MSNBC, CNN, New York One, Bloomberg News, and others, making as many as 3 different lengthy appearances on a single network, vowing to defy a subpoena from Robert Mueller.
They want me over at the grand jury. Screw that. Why do I have to go? Why? For what?
And dropping bombshell after bombshell.
Donald Trump caused this because he's an idiot.
Trump did something pretty bad, if I had assumed.
What do they have?
I don't know. I have no idea, but they have something.
Trump may have very well done something during the election with the Russians.
Trump is the most disloyal person you're ever going to meet.
He went on to viciously attack White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders' appearance. And as his interviews went on, some started to question his mental stability, which led to CNN's Erin Burnett making this observation.
Talking to you,
Yeah.
I have smelled alcohol on your breath.
Well, I have not had a drink.
You haven't had a drink, so that's
No.
not...
No.
Anything else?
No.
No.
No. Besides my meds.
Okay.
Antidepressants. Is that okay?
And even after this, the interviews continued. So did the media cross a line? Did it become, as one outlet called it, scandal porn? Joining me are Jill Abramson. She's a senior lecturer at Harvard and former executive editor of the New York Times. Good to see you again, Jill. Tina Opie is an assistant professor of management at Babson College. Nice to see you, too. I thought this whole day was so over the top, so sadistic at times. Jeffrey Toobin on CNN called him clearly troubled, which he was. What was your take on this?
My take on this is a sort of a typical one-day wonder, huge firestorm kind of signifying nothing. And I think the story, like we're on it now, but it's approaching its sell-by date.
Yeah, but beyond the story, did he not appear like a wounded animal? And most of these reporters, what they could have achieved, I acknowledge it was some newsworthiness. I mean, he appeared before...
I wasn't going to argue with you about newsworthiness, but I think he is a publicity hound. And so the idea of him as wounded animal doesn't quite ring true to me.
We were talking about that backstage a little bit, yeah.
So were you okay with how he was handled? He may have been a publicity hound, but he didn't run the shows. The anchors ran the show. Erin Burnett had him on for 40 minutes last night, asking him the same question over and over and over, signifying nothing, as one poet once said.
So we're talking about it now, right?
Were you? But I'm less interested in the content because I don't think there was that much.
Right.
I'm more interested
in the media
in
part
the
of
treatment of this. And as I said in the opening here, this is why I think people at home say this is why I hate you people, meaning people like me and you and your former life. No,
No, I agree. I think that it was pretty egregious. The challenge is the issue with Erin Burnett, or is it with the news media in general? Because probably people at those stations are happy because their ratings were up as a result of the people who were watching the show.
But the question for me is not whether they're happy. The question is, was it good journalism? Or
no, it was terrible.
I don't think so. I don't think this is newsworthy.
It was wrong of her to say she smelled liquor on his breath.
Well,
and so if you, just for a little bit more, if you missed Nunberg yesterday, which is almost impossible, here's some of the contradictions, some of which, by the way, happened in the same interview. Here he is.
They want me over at the grand jury. Screw that.
So now you're saying you might comply?
I have no problem complying in itself.
And a Friday deadline for you to go in there, yes?
Yes, and I'm not going. I would be willing to go in for testimony. I want it to be fair.
Were you troubled by that final question when she leaned forward, Erin Burnett, as Jill just mentioned, and said, I smell alcohol on your breath? Are you on something? Are you drinking? Are you...
So, I was troubled by that because it seems as though it was a gotcha moment and we're trying to get this on air. Now, the question is she trying to get to the veracity or his state of mind because of the way that he's making these statements?
My guess is a producer in her ear said keep this going.
Ask
him if he's drunk. That's mine. I don't have any evidence of that.
God, that's not the case.
Considering what you did for a living, one of the issues always is, at least it seems to me, how do you strike a proper balance in your coverage of it? And has the media...
opened the Times today, the print paper, because the TV appearances hit so that it would have made deadline. I thought the Times, I was really proud of the Times.
On this story?
Yes, it was inside not a big deal.
But do you think overall the press is still struggling, whatever this is, 14 months in, trying to figure out how do you cover this guy?
Of course, and these stories are huge distractions from the substance and the policies that the president and his administration are carrying out.
But keep in mind, this was not a presidentially created distraction. He didn't send Sam Nunberg out to be interviewed.
No, but he hired him to work on his campaign.
Well, but he left there 2.5 years ago.
He was fired.
You know, you're a management professor.
Yes.
And I think the New York Times described his Trump's style a couple of days ago as management by chaos. And here's the president, essentially at 3:30 this afternoon, admitting that that's how he governs. Here he is.
I like conflict. I like having two people with different points of view, and I certainly have that. And then I make a decision. But I like watching it, I like seeing it, and I think it's the best way to go.
So she's the journalist, you're the management expert. It is hard to cover that kind of thing in a fair and even-handed way, is it not?
It absolutely is. And the interesting thing is 45 is wrong in terms of the effectiveness of that kind of leadership. So he's talking about a coercive leadership style, which we study in management. And
what do you mean coercive? Why do you say that?
Coercive is someone who says, do what I tell you to now, who likes to incite conflict as a way of making decisions.
Or I'm going to publicly embarrass you.
Publicly embarrass you, I'll shame you, et cetera, et cetera. Research shows time and time again that that has a negative effect on organizational climate, which is what I think we're seeing in our politics today. Because of his leadership style, I think someone like Sam Nunberg thinks, hey, I mean, it got 45 into office, bad behavior did. Maybe I'll try this, and who knows where it'll get me.
Yeah,
I think that you're on to something.
How so?
That he thinks there's something in it to be as chaotic as the president is. But I don't even think what the president says is true, that he makes a decision. He often makes a decision and then, like on gun control, changes within less than 12 hours.
Yeah,
well, there's this theory from those who know him, the last person who spoke to him who he trusts is the president. You know, tweets also. There's a great debate, as you know, about how much of this stuff should be covered, excuse me, and my apologies to you back there. But it's not just that, coming from the president. I think often reporters for whom I have great respect have come very close to, if not crossed the line in their own tweeting about this president.
I think that's
going into the opinion. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yes,
I see
do too.
News reporters for the New York Times crossing the line.
Well, name one. I think Maggie Haberman's one of the best reporters in America.
She's careful.
You think she's always careful? You don't think
there
are many editorials?
I think Maggie stays
on the safe side. So who does cross the line in your former place?
Well, I thought that before he went on leave that Glenn Thrush did.
And now he's no longer, when he's back,
he's not covering the White House anymore. But I thought he did cross the line.
Should we cover, you know, I love the tweets from the president. I know I'm in a minority in this world.
Why do you love them?
I'll tell you why. Okay. Because they give us real-time feeling of what's in his head, which we have never had in 200 and some years. Now, we may not like the content, but you've never had that before.
It's a Rorschach test comprised of tweets.
So do they trouble you? I mean, I assume as a manager, again, you would say you shouldn't be doing this kind of thing, right?
I think that it's a horrible way to leave the country. I think if he was a student, they would be called into my office and we'd be having a psychological assessment because I'm wondering, what in the world are you talking about? How are you leading this way? Trade wars are great, and easily won. Okay, so are nuclear wars in that case. What are you talking about?
But quickly, you agree?
But Jim, I think you're on to something.
That's shocking.
I do. I think
that
his tweeting strikes that authenticity chord with his supporters.
But can we just talk about this?
To his popularity with his base.
You have 10 seconds.
I study authenticity. Authenticity is about being your best self. What he's doing is being sort of a provocateur. He's not necessarily being authentic because remember, he flip-flops.
Wish we could continue, but we can't. Jill, it's great to see you. Tina, you as well.
Thank you,
As always, thanks so much to both of you.